Alrighty, people, it's been a long time coming, but today we need to talk about limited run games. Now, this won't be a video just full on hating limited run. I obviously am an LRG customer. I buy a lot of stuff from them, but over the years, LRG has built such a negative reputation for themselves that it's kind of hard to ignore it, right? So today we're going to be talking about some of the recent mishaps that this company has made, some of the recent scandals, I would say, going on with LRG. Most recently, there was something happening with Tomba on Switch, where they had said that a patch that fixes a game-breaking bug would be on the cartridges that got shipped out. Seemingly, that's not the case. So we're talking about all of that today, as well as some other things regarding their shipping times, manufacturing times, shipping cost, that I actually kind of disagree with the internet consensus on. But that's what we're doing today. Of course, if you are new here and you enjoy collecting content, but also videos like this every once in a while, I would appreciate you subscribing. Let's get into it. Okay, so if you're watching this video, I assume you probably know who Limited Run is. They are a company that produces limited physical prints of Switch, PlayStation, and Xbox games. They started out on a PS4, really going hard on like Vita as well around that time. Back then, the way they operated is they would print all the copies of their games beforehand, and then they would put it up on the websites, and games might sell out in a few minutes. Now they have adopted a, I would say, month-long or so pre-order structure where they put up a game for open pre-order and you pre-order it, right? And they don't actually start manufacturing it until months later, which has caused a lot of like controversy on how long they actually take to ship. But the general idea is they make limited prints of physical games. And early on, it was mostly indie stuff. But as LRG has gotten bigger and bigger, we have seen major publishers actually partnering with them for a lot of physical releases that I think to a lot of people should not be done through a limited company, you know, something here like the Castlevania collections from Konami. These probably shouldn't be sold through like a limited print company, right? It's Castlevania. You can put that on store shelves and it'll sell. I'm getting a little ahead of myself though. We'll talk more about that in just a second. I want to start off with the big thing that happened over the weekend. People started getting their physical copies of Tomba for the Switch, and this is one I wanted to pre-order, but I missed it, so I'll maybe go back and buy it eventually, but maybe not, because apparently there was a game-breaking bug in the 1.0 version of this game if you bought it on the eShop when it released, I believe back at the beginning of August. And here we have the CEO of Limited Run, Josh Fairhurst, saying they will not be manufactured without the patch we released yesterday on Switch, which improves stability and fixes other issues. He was saying right here, it's hard to see because the account that he was replying to got suspended or whatever, but he was saying here, he was basically confirming while Tomba was still available for pre-order on Switch, that it would include the patch that fixes the game-breaking bug. People found out when they got their copy of it very recently that they did not, in fact, include the update on the cartridge. In fact, there are no patches included on the cartridge for Tomba on Switch. It is running on version 1.0. So this was just a complete and blatant lie, and I cannot believe it. You know, it's like, what are we doing here? Why would you lie? It's one thing to be like, okay, we started manufacturing too late and we couldn't get the patch on the cartridge, and just be honest about it, right? Be honest, maybe offer replacement cartridges, that kind of thing. I know it's a big deal, but when you're selling a product that has a game-breaking bug on it, and then while it's open for pre-order, you're promising that it will include the patch that fixes that thing, I mean, that's messed up, man. That is just poor customer service. That is poor customer relations. That is bad. There's no way to slice this as a good thing. This was a blatant lie, and frankly, they should be offering refunds for Tomba on Switch. And yes, if you have the cartridge and you put it in your Switch, you can download the updates, but for those that aren't like super into the collecting community, it's a big deal being able to say, okay, this game is complete on the cartridge, it runs off the cartridge, you don't need to connect to the internet to, you know, play it and then have it fixed, right? That is something that a lot of people take very seriously. Now, I'm not necessarily one of those people. If I have to download an update, I'm not, you know, losing sleep over it. However, when you're promising that it's going to include the patch, it should probably include the patch. And just going over some other things that they've done recently that I find very irritating. So Sega works with LRG quite a bit, and they had a special edition for Sonic Shadow Generations up on their websites that includes like this really cool like Sonic on a Dreamcast statue and some other goodies, right? They were saying, okay, you can pre-order this through us. You're going to get the game like at launch, right? They're going to ship the game separately at launch because they're manufacturing these statues. Now, statues take a long time to manufacture. That makes total sense. Those aren't going to ship until like late 2025, I think. But they said like, hey, we're going to ship the base game when the game releases on October 25th. Those ended up getting delayed until like mid-November, which if it's just like an old game of finally getting a physical for the first time through LRG, that's one thing. But when it's a new release like Sonic Shadow Generations and you're saying, hey, it's gonna ship at launch, and then it doesn't ship at launch, that's kind of an issue, especially when you consider that on Black Friday, Sonic Shadow Generations was literally already half off. So theoretically, if you bought the special edition, you're the most hardcore Sonic fan, you're buying this huge special edition, maybe you want to get that PS4 version that's actually exclusive physically through LRG, you buy it through them and you don't even get to play it until the game is already half off at other retailers. I'm very lenient on shipping times, as we'll talk about, but that one specifically, it's like, you should have had that ready, man. What the heck happened? This one happened a few months ago. I believe it's a reprint of a 3DO game, but maybe it's a new game. I'm not too sure. I'm not familiar with 3DO as much as other consoles, but they released this game called D for 3DO. They did it up. They had this big, rollout event for it. They were, selling it as a reprint or a new game. Like I said, I'm not quite sure. It was printed on a CDR disc. It didn't run on actual hardware. So I don't know if they just thought like, oh, people aren't going to open these. We're, selling to collectors that keep their stuff sealed. I don't know if that's what they thought would happen. I don't know if this is somehow an oversight. It seems like they were trying to save money, and I guess hoping that, realistically, how many people that bought D on 3DO from LRG, how many of those people are going to open it, right? That's probably what they were thinking. But yeah, they were shipping out a 3DO game that literally didn't even work on actual hardware. That's unacceptable. With that being said, I do want to start easing a little bit more into where I would say I'm a little bit more apologetic when it comes to LRG. I've seen a lot of discussion about Yakuza recently regarding the fact that they are reprinting these games on PS4 when most of them, in fact, all of them actually already have physicals on PS4. Now 3, 4, and 5 are part of a collection. But yeah, they're re-releasing Yakuza 0 and Kiwami, 3, 4, and 5 separately, and then 6 when, Yakuza 0, Kiwami 2, and 6 already have like standalone releases on PS4. Why are they reprinting these games? It feels like a cash grab. This is where I actually disagree with a lot of that online. I've seen so many people saying that. This is for hardcore Yakuza fans, and you can still find the Yakuza games that are on PS4 for pretty cheap. The reason they're doing this is because, for one, they're giving 3, 4, and 5 a standalone release, and while I know a lot of people don't get it, I totally get this. I like having standalone releases of each game on a shelf. I think it looks a lot nicer lined up. They also wanted to do these special editions that also have like a unique spine on each one, and it kind of like lines up to make a full picture. I get it. For this, I actually do get it. If you already have Yakuza Kiwami on PS4, maybe you have that Steelbook Launch Edition, you have no reason to buy this unless you're a hardcore fan and you want that special edition. But for the sake of consistency, I think it's actually pretty cool that they're doing this, and it's really no different than when you see, I was talking to somebody about this, it's really no different than when you see a movie get re-released on, like a new cover or something, right? You don't need to buy this, but if like you're a huge Yakuza fan and you want that special edition, it's nice that they're giving the option here. This is also the first time that Xbox is getting a physical release of these games, and for Switch with Kiwami 1, which is the only game it has, that's obviously where they're getting the physical for that for the first time. So in my opinion, it would have been really weird to leave PS4 out of it when Yakuza's main audience is on PlayStation. So if Xbox is getting this cool special edition set, I think a lot of PlayStation fans would end up feeling left out, even if they already had the game. So I've seen a lot of people complaining about this, but I actually think this is fine. However, this does start breaching into the bigger topic, and that is something that's on the one hand, I get it when it comes to these bigger games like Yakuza. On the other hand, I don't get it when it comes to smaller stuff. And that is this entire issue people have with bigger publishers working with LRG. Like I mentioned at the top, it used to be that it was mostly indie games, right? Like that was how it went. Axiom Verge was a big one I remember being excited for on Wii U from LRG. And over the past couple of years, especially like, 2022 to like now, we have seen them get so much support from major publishers, specifically Konami, I would say, is the biggest culprit, maybe next to Sega. Sega really in this past year has been given LRG quite a bit of releases, and I'm of two minds. On the one hand, like I said, there's no real reason for Castlevania to have to go through LRG. Castlevania is a known IP. If you sold these games at retailers locally, at GameStop, on Amazon, right, like, they would do well. Konami should have no reason to be going through LRG for a Castlevania release. However, on the other side of that coin, there are a lot of things that simply would not exist without LRG. And I think the issues people have here really should be taken up with Konami or with Sega and Atlas. If it wasn't for LRG, something like this wouldn't exist. Rocket Knight Adventures only got re-released because of LRG. Now, that is frustrating, right? Konami should be doing these things on their own. However, they're not. So from that angle, when I see LRG going and, using their Carbon engine, which maybe isn't the best, right, as we're seeing with, like, game-breaking Tomba bugs, to me, it's kind of cool, and I appreciate that they exist to help get these games on more platforms. Same thing with, like, the Felix the Cat collection, and Tomba, of course, the Gex trilogy is coming over from them next year. These are things that literally would not happen without LRG. Now, that is, like I said, that is frustrating, but I would say take those issues up with the publisher, not LRG. LRG's doing something actually really good here by making these games more accessible on more platforms. It's not like they're stuck to being physical only. They are available in the eShop, and a lot of people buy games digitally, so I think overall this is a net positive. When it comes to stuff that, doesn't really make sense for Konami to pursue, they're not going to pursue Rocket Knight Adventures, but because LRG's interested and because they're footing the bill for development, I would presume, and, handling the wide release of it, it's fine. They don't mind doing it. But when you talk about Castlevania, and then when we talk about Sega with stuff like Persona, I think Persona is really the real kicker for a lot of people. That's, like, come on, man. Once again, I think you should take this up with Sega, not LRG, but, like, why is Sega not releasing Persona 3 and 4 on their own? These are probably, maybe, some of the highest profile games LRG's ever done, if not the highest profile games ever done. And, of course, those happened late last year. On the one hand, I mean, they are old games, right? It's a PSP game and a Vita game. So maybe Sega just thinks there's not enough demand. But the way I view it, it's Persona. Persona 5 is an absolutely massive game. Persona as a franchise has grown so much. You could do Persona on your own, Sega. You really don't need to go through LRG. But on the other hand, gotta keep playing devil's advocate. It's kind of cool that LRG gets to do it because they do go all out. I mean, some of their special editions are a little lower quality, I would say, but for something like Persona, I actually pre-ordered these. These are 6 special editions, and there's literally no way, even if we got a standard release from Sega on these Persona games, I really highly doubt they would have done the special editions. And the way Limited Run operates with their open pre-orders, it does kind of give people a pretty good chance of getting it. Now, in 10 years, Persona on Switch, that might be, like, impossible to obtain, or Persona 3 and 4 on PS4. Those are going to be probably very expensive games because that is a very sought-after franchise. People love that franchise, and, they weren't maybe there at the time. Maybe they weren't fans of it yet when the open pre-order happened. However, once again, just to, like, put more blame maybe on the bigger publishers, look at what happened with the Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster and Square Enix. They severely underestimated demand for that game, and to be fair, they did rectify it and reprinted the Pixel Remaster, but when the Pixel Remaster released, they launched it at like 3 a.m. on their websites, and it was going for like almost $1,000 on PS4. That does not happen with LRG. Not the way they do their business now, anyway. Maybe back in the day, Shantae, Half Genie Hero, not Half Genie Hero, Pirate's Curse on Switch. That is one of the most expensive Switch games, but that's because it was before they, adopted the open pre-order model. Having open pre-orders for something like Persona 3 and 4 or Yakuza on Switch, like, yes, this may become an issue 10 years down the line when new fans are getting into it and they want to go back and buy it and add it to their collections. As of right now, it's a pretty balanced approach, I would say, overall. And then, yeah, you don't have issues like with the Pixel Remaster where that launches, they severely underestimate it, and it becomes a $1,000 game. Once again, though, to Square Enix's credits, they did reprint that, and actually now it's really cheap. I saw it on Woot for like $45, I think, during Black Friday. So, to be fair, they did fix it, but you do have situations like that happen, and that doesn't really happen with LRG. So, I understand people's disdain for, every time a new game is announced, it's like, oh god, LRG's gonna get it. Under the replies of the Nintendo of America tweet for Yakuza Kiwami, there were so many people being like, oh no, they're gonna get Yakuza, aren't they? And should Sega do it on their own? Absolutely. I think you should take those complaints to Sega, though. Sega should know better than to have to go through a limited company. Yakuza is a big franchise. It should sell well on Switch enough on its own to not have to, fall back on LRG as like I don't really know. I mean, I guess it's easier for them, right? They basically have to do none of the work and get all of the reward. But for me, when I see a game announced, at this point, I'm just thankful that it will get a physical release. I mean, we are living in a pretty rough time when it comes to physical game releases. Xbox is really pushing to just kill that. I think it's Avowed. Avowed next year doesn't have a physical release confirmed, which is absolutely crazy. That's one of their biggest games next year, and it doesn't look like that's having a physical. I think there's like a steelbook you can buy with a digital upgrade code, which is stupid. Why would you? I don't know, man. That's weird to me. Do a proper physical. And then, PlayStation slowly getting there, and then Nintendo's holding the strongest, I would say. At the very least, as long as these consoles have a disk drive, which, to be fair, the days might be numbered for PlayStation and Xbox, and as long as your Nintendo console has a cartridge slot, which should last at least 10 years from now, I would say, with the Switch 2, it is nice to know that Sega and Konami are on board there, and even if they should be doing wider releases, I'm grateful they exist at all, and once again, for stuff like Rocket Knight Adventures, I'm just grateful that Limited Run released it, like they could have just not done that, and then this game would still be trapped, and that would suck, but now it is available on more platforms, so it is a complicated issue for sure, and it is frustrating that these games even need to go through LRG, but on the other hand, at least it is happening at all. We could just be getting nothing, I've also always been really confused by this, but I always see people really complaining about how long it takes to get games through LRG. And yeah, I mean, depending on what you order, if it's a basic game, you'll probably get it in like 6 to 9 months, I would say, on average now. Back, like a couple years ago, that would depend. I think Scott Pilgrim took forever. So there are definitely instances where it takes forever. I mean, I think Hi-Fi Rush actually right now is one that is taking a while, although that's not necessarily LRG's fault. That's because of what happened with Tango and Xbox. I think they got sold to Embracer? Or, sorry, it was actually Krafton. I think that's maybe not necessarily LRG's fault. Maybe that's not necessarily on them. But it's when you order like the really elaborate special editions that sometimes like have little action figures and they have soundtracks. These can take over a year, sometimes 2 years to ship. And a lot of people are really angry about that. However, once again, just, playing devil's advocate here. And actually, this is how I feel. This is just how things go. I mean, maybe people that go through LRG don't order stuff from other websites, but like, let's say you order figures, right? I think this is probably the best example. I ordered a Xenoblade Chronicles 3 figure from, I think, Good Smile, or one of these companies that's doing anime figures and game figures. The shipping time is like early 2026. That's very common for production for like a figure. So when I see a big special edition and it says, on the website, like, hey, shipping Q3, Q4 2025, it's like, well, I mean, it takes time to manufacture this stuff. And that's really the thing, right? When you go to buy an item on LRG's website, it tells you right there the estimated shipping time. So it's always kind of frustrating to me when I see people complaining that it's taking forever for the thing to ship when it literally says it on the website. Now, when there are cases like the Sonic and Shadow Generations delay, then yeah, you can be annoyed at a delay. That's stupid, especially for something like that where it was a new release. But when we're talking about like for me, I pre-ordered the Persona 3 and 4 special editions. Those got delayed from, I think, this quarter to like January. That's frustrating, but also, I mean, they say, okay, it's going to take over a year for me to get it. What's another month or so? I don't know. I just feel like this is how long it takes to manufacture stuff. And the inverse of this is, once again, it all goes back to the bigger publishers. They should not be going through LRG. They should just be footing the bill and having these things on their websites or something like that. But if it wasn't an open pre-order, which is part of the reason it takes so long, right? You buy it the day the pre-order goes up. It takes a month for the pre-orders to close. They don't even start manufacturing it until after that. If they just put the games up on their website like they used to, that's when you have stuff like Shantae and the Pirate Skirts happen on Switch, where that game is like $500, where the special edition is like $800. You don't want that to happen. So while I can understand it's frustrating that games take a while to get to you, that's just how manufacturing works, man. It just takes time. And if they, like I said, if they had the stuff in hand, that would mean they maybe underestimate demand, like with the Pixel remaster through Square Enix. So I don't think there's any winning, basically. There's always going to be issues with this model, but on the other hand, I don't think, as LRG currently exists today, there's really a way for them to do that better. Ideally, these things would go through Sega, go through Konami, and any other publisher. But as it stands, I'm grateful that it happens at all, right? Like I was saying, I'm just happy that Rocket Knight Adventures, or even something like I mean, this is another frustrating one. I think they had announced the physical and actually canceled it, and then LRG came in and picked it up. Doom Eternal on the Nintendo Switch here. This ended up releasing just on the eShop after a delay. id and Bethesda should have released that. There's no excuse. Frankly, there's no excuse. But at least LRG's there to pick it up, you know. LRG is a weird company, and to kind of close off here, you know, I'm being very positive in the second half of this video. What they did with the 3DO game, unacceptable. Lying about what patch is on the Tomba cart, unacceptable. You can't be doing this stuff. Even the Sonic Shadow Generations delay, like, okay, yeah, delays happen. For something like that specifically, it's like, come on, man. I understand a lot of the frustrations people have with this company. On the other hand, I think some of it is a little overblown, so to speak. But let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. How do you feel about Limited Run as a company? I imagine there's going to be a lot of people in the comments being like, I hate LRG. A lot of people calling me, maybe even a bootlicker for defending some of what they do. But ultimately, I think you should take those issues to the bigger publishers. And I'm just happy that LRG, you know, if Sega's not going to release Persona 3 and 4 physically on Switch, at least LRG is there to do it. You know? But yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Of course, subscribe here for more collecting content like this almost each and every day. Follow me on Twitter at BoTalksGames. Follow me on my other YouTube channel where I cover Nintendo news at BoTalksGames as well. And until next time, folks, peace.